So essentially here, the beginning of the chapter, as is indicated, the title, it says, the conditions of ghusl are 7 in number. So there were 7 mujibat, causes, and now there are 7 conditions that have to be met. The first of those conditions, Shaykh al-Ba'li rahimahullah, he says that number 1, cessation of what necessitates it. Inqita'u ma yujibu. Meaning that whatever has obliged you to perform a ghusl has to be finished and completed. A very clear example of that is menstrual cycle. So a woman that is getting close to the end of her menstrual cycle, her monthly period, which its minimum amount is a day and a night, its maximum amount is 15 days. When they are ending that cycle, the blood has to stop flowing completely before they can take a ghusl. If the blood is still flowing and they perform the ghusl, it does not count. The next thing is an-niyyah, which is the intention. And we know the paramount importance of intentions in Islam. And the intention should be to remove impurity in order to perform worship. So if someone were to jump into the shower, and though they may perform what is necessary of a ghusl, but they intend by it to cool off perhaps, or to freshen up, or to shower and wash off, to, as most of us do preparing to go to work, we want to freshen up, we want to bathe with soap and shampoo to smell nice. If we do not have the intention to perform a ritual bath to remove impurity or the state of impurity, then it is not sufficient. The next thing, number 3, he says, al-Islam, meaning you have to be Muslim. It's not accepted from other than a Muslim. Wal-aqlu, your sanity, your mental capacity and faculty. You have your wit about you. You're not insane, or something has rendered you incapable of understanding things. The next thing, what tamyizu. Tamyiz, of course, is a discernment. The person that is performing the ghusl is of age where they are able to discern between this and that. This is a ghusl, this is playing in the water, this is jumping around in the shower. It's not all the same thing. So you see here, he didn't say al-bulugh, he said at-tamyiz, because we talked about if someone was under the age of puberty, that they could still perform, they may still be obliged to perform a ghusl to carry out certain things. So here at tamyiz. The next thing is al-ma'u tahur al-mubah. So this is a couple of things. Water, which is purifying and is permissible. The difference here is it's al-ma'u tahur, not al-ma'u tahir. Right? Ma'u tahur is the water that is still as it was created, has not changed its smell or its taste, nor its odor. And al-mubah, meaning permissible here, is that it's water that is not misappropriated, nor is it water that is stolen. So it has to be permissible. If it's not permissible, stolen water, then this of course is another topic, then it is not sufficient. The next thing is izadatu ma yamna'u wusula, which means removing that which prevents its access, meaning removing things from the body, the body parts that have to be washed, that would prevent water from reaching the skin. So those are things like most prevalent, I guess, would be things like paint. For women is fingernail polish. This is a very real situation here. The fingernail polish that the women, they put on their fingernails is enamel, and so it creates a layer. There's like they consider jilda. There's like a little layer of skin, if you will, that would prevent water from reaching the nail. Any type of heavy substance, fatty substance, or greasy substance that creates this layer above the skin, which the water is unable to penetrate through. There's a difference between here, this jilda, this type of layer or skin, versus a color. So sometimes they're using different dyes and stains for the skin, sometimes makeup and other times like the little henna tattoos and stuff like that for the parties and munasabat. So that, if you've ever watched that applied, they put that on there very heavy, which creates a barrier, but then it's removed. And the only thing behind is the stain, which is a color, and that does not prevent the water from touching the skin, so that's permitted to stay on there. Anything else has to be removed. He says, وَفَرْضُهُ أَنْ يَعُمَّ بِالْمَاءِ جَمِيعَ بَدْنِهِ. That the fard here, you should say the obligation, or we could say the pillar of this, of the ghusl, is that the water has to spread over the entire body. Included in that is the dakhil famihi wa anfi, in the mouth as well as the nose. So this is also what is included in wudu, at-tamadmad wal-istinshaq, which is to put water in the mouth and rinse it thoroughly in the mouth so that it reaches all of the mouth, and then as well as the nose as you would. And this covering of the body, he says, even that it would reach the vulva of a woman when she were to sit down to use the restroom, to relieve herself. So this type of sitting down is something that was done, of course, traditionally when they used the restroom. They weren't sitting on a chair like the commode that we have today, but they were squatting. And so this is considered, this part of the woman's body, what is exposed as she squats down is fi hukm al-zahir. Right? This is like the outward part of the body. Otherwise, simply standing up or even sitting in a chair, much of that region is covered by folds of skin. So this is something that has to be paid close attention to for the ladies. He says, وَيَكْفِ الظَّنُّ فِي الْإِسْبَاغِ. And sufficient is assumption that the water has reached all of the body. That you assume that it has reached all of the body. You have a good, strong feeling that you have completed the task. It's not just hit the front, it's not just the side or just the back, just the top or just the bottom, but you have a strong feeling that it has reached the entire body and all of the crevices and cracks and nooks and crannies. Right? That's sufficient. And then he says here, this is also important here, وَمَنْ نَوَى غُسْلًا مَسْنُونًا. And whoever were to intend to perform a ghusl which is considered sunnah. So there are some times that the ghusl is sunnah. For example, Friday. When you get ready for your Friday prayer, before Salatul Jummah, of course, not after, before you perform a ghusl, this is a ghusl masnoon. It's a sunnah ghusl. You may not be required to perform that because you haven't met the 7 different causes that oblige you to perform ghusl. However, to perform that with the intent, masnoonan or wajiban, he says, ajza an al-akhir, either one or the other, whether it's sunnah, an intention of sunnah or an intention of obligation, it will be sufficient for both. So if a person was junub, they were in a state of major ritual impurity, but then they went into the shower to perform a ghusl because it was Friday and their intention was, I'm doing this ghusl because it's for Yawm al-Jum'ah. Their intention was not to purify themselves from major ritual impurity. That was not a part of the intent that was present. It would be sufficient that they simply intended to perform this ghusl for a sunnah, and it would be enough to cover the obligation. Or if it was for an obligatory, another obligatory, for example, cause that we've discussed in the past. He says, kuriha nawmu junubin, that it's disliked that the one who is junub, this is a major state of impurity, sexual impurity, go to sleep bila wudu'in, that they fall asleep without having at least made wudu. So the wudu here is that which will lighten and lessen the state of impurity. So this is makruh, that after intimacy with your spouse, you fall asleep without having at least made wudu. If not, made the ghusl. Right? So this is something that should become a habit and a practice. وَيُكْرَهُ بِنَاءُ الْحَمَّامِ وَبَيْعُهُ وَإِجَارَتُهُ. He says it's disliked to construct the hammam, which are, sometimes we're saying the bathroom here, hammam, but this is the bathhouses, right? The bathhouses that they're not, actually we'll say today the spa, because today we have it here in America. Before they have the bathhouses where you go and they have the place where you wash and the tubs and all of that kind of thing. But the most related thing to that which we have today is the spa. Or, for example, the locker room at the gym. The locker room. The spa is most related, I guess. The locker room would also, I think, fit under this based on a couple of factors. He says it's disliked, makruh, to construct the bathhouses, selling and renting them. Selling and renting them. Reciting the Quran in them. As-salamu, saying salam in them. La-dhikru, but not ad-dhikr, remembrance. Because remembrance of Allah is something that can be done in all cases and all scenarios. He says, وَدُخُولُهُ بِسِتْرَةٍ مَعَ أَمْنِ الْوُقُوءِ فِي مُحَرَّمٍ مُبَاحٍ. Entering in these bathhouses with clothes. This is key, because this is a cultural nuance here in America, is that most of the spas and locker rooms and public bathrooms that you go to, they go in there, they may go in there with clothes, but they take them off in front of everyone. Right? So they become nude in front of everyone, and that does what? Exposes the awra, which is an obligation for it to be covered, especially in the presence of other people. Right? The awra is only exposed for the spouse. Total exposure. Right? And this is something that's happened, this is something that you find frequently happen in these types of places. And that's why they're considered makruh, because this is the ghalib. Right? This is what's prevalent with these types of things. So he says it's permissible to go in there with clothing on there, مع أمن الوقوع في المحرم, so long as you are safe from falling into impermissible, the haram. وَإِنْ خِيفَ كُرِهِ, if you fear that it will become impermissible, if you fear that it may happen, it's makruh. أو دخلته أنثى بلا عذر حرم. If you know that inside of it, that spa, if you will, is haram, if you know that there's haram inside of there, meaning the exposure of awrah, or a woman were to enter it without a sufficient excuse, it is impermissible, absolutely haram.